And joining me now is the president and founder of Eurasia Group and G0 Media, Ian Bremmer. He's in Washington this week for NATO. Look, Ian, Joe Biden, as we said, hosting the summit. Then he's going to have a solo press conference on Thursday. And I wonder what you're hearing from your sources in some of these allied nations about what the president needs to do, how much nervousness is there. What does he have to prove this week?
Look, these are the American allies that are most concerned. You are talking about a recognition that if Trump becomes president, he does not support a strong Europe. He likes Brexit, and he wanted the French to leave as well. That's an enormous concern for these European allies. He said he's going to end the war in Ukraine on his first day, and Putin has just in the last couple of days said that he's very interested in this supposed Trump peace plan. That is panicking the European leaders. There are other leaders around the world that feel like they can manage a Trump presidency much more effectively. The Japanese, for example, the Indians, for example, certainly the Gulf states, Israel. But when you talk about the leaders that are here for the 75th anniversary of NATO, I would say they are concerned to the brink of panic. And certainly they've seen what has been Biden's worst week and a half in his political history, and it's making them fear that they have to start preparing for what a Trump administration might mean for them. It's a very serious problem for them.
Are you hearing any rumblings that they are hopeful or would be supportive of, or any version of that, if someone were to replace Joe Biden at the top of the Democratic ticket?
Look, this isn't new. These leaders have been meeting with Biden at summits regularly, whether it's the United Nations or the G7 or the G20 over the years. They come for state meetings. They have seen him visibly slow down. His physical mobility, they have noticed, is nowhere close to what it used to be. His ability to catch everything they're saying, engage, I mean, just do the job of the president. It's not that he's feeble-minded, but he's not who Joe Biden was when he won the presidency. And I will tell you that no one thinks that he could run the country effectively as president for another 4 years. And I'm talking about American allies here. And that's a serious problem. That's a serious problem. And they worry, of course, that if he stays the course, that means that Biden is more likely to lose. They're not going to make public statements about that Biden needs to step down. They're allies of the U.S. It would be utterly inappropriate for them to do so. But you will not see a leader on the global stage this week that isn't concerned about this issue. You won't.
There's a lot of concern about a lot of things, Ian. So before you go, I want to ask you about the election in France. You've made it clear this is not a win for President Emmanuel Macron, for France or the EU. So how does this change things for one of America's closest allies?
Oh, you're asking me all the tough questions today, right? I mean, the UK election actually looks better for NATO. It looks better for Ukraine. It looks better for the American alliance. France does not. Macron's party got walloped in the first round, got walloped in the second round. They've lost a lot of seats. And now you basically have three different blocks, political blocks that have virtually no overlap in their policy preferences. And Macron has to find a way to govern with them. And that means, some sort of technocratic or compromise government. And the only way they get anything done is if Macron himself steps out of all domestic policy making. He just basically does foreign and security policy. It's going to be very hard for him. It's a huge loss. It also makes France much weaker on the global stage and getting anything done like a budget with the EU and getting, sort of approvals to move forward Ukrainian integration into the EU, which would require changing rules. The parliament would have to approve that. None of that is possible with this new French parliament. So not only are the Europeans here in the United States and Washington worried about the American elections, they're also worried about how they can continue to progress with a stronger Europe that is essential as they worry about the Russians who just today are bombing children's hospitals in Kiev.
Yeah. Ian Bremmer, always great to have you on the program. Thank you for taking the time.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.